And welcome everybody back to our Marriage Monday
Yes, welcome.
YouTube time. It's good to have all of you with us. Those of you who are here and those who are going to join later or watch this later, it's good to have you here on our YouTube streaming channel.
Yes.
As we talk about marriages, we do this every Monday. My name's Kevin, this is Lisa, and we are here for you and your marriage. We talk a little bit about ours and a little bit about yours. And we know that every Monday, no matter where your marriage is at, what do we always say?
You can have a restart.
It's a good time to restart, no matter when or where
Absolutely.
or
Yes,
whoever
yes.
you are. So again, good to have you here. We, in the last few weeks, have been talking about, we have finished actually, the concept of your marriage legacy and how important
that was awesome.
marriage is, and not just the marriage that you're in presently, but where your marriage is ultimately going and the legacy that you'll leave. Do you
Yeah.
remember a little bit about what we talked about?
Yeah, it was amazing. Actually, many people have, well, not many, but some people have contacted us and even, told us that they've been working on their marriage legacy already and working out a vision. We finished off with the vision of what you want your marriage to really
that's
be,
right.
the goals that you want to strive for, and kind of the roadmap to get there.
Yep. So here's what we want to do. Go ahead, and if you're on your phone or one of these
tell
things,
us if you worked on that at all.
if you can jump into the chat. So tell us this week if you've had any time to have some vision for your marriage. If you've taken a little bit of time, maybe someone has actually a vision board. Maybe we talked about that last week. If you did that, way to go. If you didn't, don't despair. Maybe you also talked about where you want to go in your life and in your marriage. And go ahead and drop that in the chat. Just anything you'd like to share with us in that way, what you've done, or in ways that you discussed. Maybe you went on a walk, maybe you went and had some coffee, maybe you just sat and stared at each other, and that type of thing. So
I know today I got a picture sent to me by Lisa Escalona because Stu and her have been working on they actually, with the old-fashioned, big piece of Bristol board, and they
went to the
worked
dollar
on,
store.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I won't put it on the screen because it's personal, but thank you, Lisa, for sharing that. That's exciting. And also, I know Dave and Jane Ivy have been working hard on their vision as well. They're already amazing, but apparently they can even get a little more amazing.
Hard to believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got a number of pictures this week from Dave as he was, working on just stuff around his home, and Dave and I have been friends longer than we care to admit.
They have an amazing Facebook group, Couples Doing Life Together, that you can go ahead and find on Facebook, I believe. But yeah, they're an amazing couple.
Yeah, so if you're on the Facebook page, the face thing, if you're on that.
Did I say that wrong?
Probably, no, I think you said it right. Couples Doing Life Together. If you go ahead and just look that up on Facebook and you just kind of click on that and you kind of become part of that group, and then you'll get the marriage stuff and the marriage encouragement, and there's some humorous stuff as well that they share with regards to the marriages there. So that's a good thing if you'd like to do that. And also if you're here for the first time and you want to work on your marriage, you want us to be back, go ahead and hit subscribe here on our YouTube channel as well. We'd appreciate that.
Yeah, Carrie Boyce is sharing that they got a bulletin board out, mounted it on a door. That's amazing.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's a start, and then hopefully you got some vision on top of that. But I guess a door is a great place because you're always going to know what your vision is, right?
Albert says once a week he and Reed, I guess, are discussing their relationship and ways to communicate better. That's awesome.
That's good, and hopefully that goes well.
Oh, and Dave Ivy, we did say it wrong. It's actually just called Couples Doing Life.
Couples Doing Life.
Yeah.
That's on Facebook. So just search up Couples Doing Life or look at it in the chat there, and you'll be able to get that. So good to have everybody here as we are have started, and we want to keep going. It's 8:05. Let's get into marriages.
Okay.
Let's do some good, and let's change some people's lives.
Sounds good.
It's summertime. I don't know if you've noticed that. We're here in North America. We're here in Canada specifically. We're here in the Toronto area. The sun's staying out late. It's June.
Yes, nice.
It's really, really nice. And so if you're out on the back deck right now, you're a lucky person. Good for you.
Yeah. Tell us that too.
So we are, it's Marriage Monday. We've talked about legacy. We're going to start a new series. We're going to start some new things that we're going to talk about in the next few weeks together. And that is specifically phases that marriages go through. The different phases that our marriages go through. We're going to talk about 5 phases that that most marriages go through or Is it every marriage, do you think, or most? What would you think
Well, I
about
think that all of our marriages are pretty unique, but we can all see how they evolve and change over time, and that we have similarities in the way that they change based on age and how long we've been married and life circumstances. So, it's not all the same, but experts say you can kind of map it out. And if it's not, 5 or 10 or 20, I think 5 is more manageable for what we're doing. So
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And I think you entitled it, "Oh, wow."
That's right. So as you can see behind us here, this whole kind of series, and this is what we hope for your life and that your marriage embodies, just these words, "Oh, wow." And in every way that wording comes, like, "Oh, wow."
Wow.
You really want your marriage to be that, but we also have admitted, and we've talked a lot about it on this show, that your marriage isn't always, "Oh, wow." Sometimes it isn't always, "Oh, wow." Sometimes it's, "Oh, wow." You know what I'm saying? But that's life. And so if your marriage is summed up, all of the phases that you go through, we just want to call this whole section, this whole next 5 sessions together, "Oh, wow." At the end of your life, at the end of your journey, and I know we've talked about legacy in the last few weeks, but at the end of your time together, to be able to say, "Oh, wow, that was
a big deal.
That was great. We did it." And that's what the "Oh, wow" is really all about. But we're not going to talk about, well, we'll just show you what the 5 stages are. We're going to keep the "Oh" theme as we get going here. So if you can see behind us on the screen here, "Oh, wow" is the main focus. But each of the phases that we go through, Lisa and I have kind of given them these names because we thought, with everything that we probably and most of us will go through, some of these words line up. And so the first session, or the first week, which we're going to talk about tonight, is "Oh, yes."
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. So that's week 1. We'll get onto that. Now you're going to stay around just to hear what that's going to be. The next phase that we see that people go through is "uh-oh," or oh, but "uh-oh" is how we say it certainly here.
Yeah.
And the third stage is "oh, dear," which you can imagine what comes with that. Also, "oh, boy," after that. And then,
Oh, happy day.
Happy day.
Yes.
And so these are stages, these are phases and stages that we all kind of go through. And the goal that we want to do when we're talking about them is that if you learn and if you're aware of these stages, it can really help you in your life.
Yeah.
And so you won't necessarily be surprised, or you won't be taken unawares when some things come your way.
Absolutely. It's so helpful because we all know, those of us who've been married a little longer than the first phase, that there are hardships in our path, in our journey, and things that are challenging, crisis. We talked about crisis a few weeks ago. It helps to know where you are and just where you're at sort of in your phases, and even appreciate each other for where they're at because of the phase that you're in, and we'll just help you. And each one we're going to kind of build off of the next, they're going to build off of each other. I love what our social media team said today on social media about them. I can't totally remember it, but I was like, yes, that's our introduction right there. So
I told them what to write, and I can't even remember what we said, but it was really great. Follow us on Instagram. That's Milestone Churches on Instagram, and you can see stuff like that too.
And we also are supposed to mention, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you could do that, that would be great, and you'll always know when something's going on.
And do you know I've already said that? Isn't that amazing?
Oh,
High five.
dear.
We are so one.
Tonight?
We have no idea what we're doing.
You said that tonight?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I wasn't listening
That's
to you.
okay.
I'm so sorry.
But you're getting ready.
Yeah.
So let's speak about getting ready. Let's go, right? Let's talk about phase 1.
Okay.
Phase 1 is up on the screen here. I don't know if you can see it clearly, but the first phase that we'd like to talk to you about, that we see happening in most people's marriages, not all people's marriages, but most people's marriages, is this oh yes.
Yeah. It's a beautiful phase.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about it.
Intro it a little bit. Many people call this phase all kinds of names, but it's definitely when you're very attracted to each other, you're passionate, you're becoming one, you're working on your oneness, you're romantic,
Maybe you can put in the chat, what are some of the nicknames that you think that this is kind of your first stage, you just got married. What are some of those phases called or stages called. You probably, if you think of some, drop them in the chat. We don't have the copyright on all this stuff. This is just observations that we're making as well. But yeah, so it's.
I bet someone will write in there, yep, there it is. Oh my gosh, one after the other, the honeymoon stage.
The honeymoon stage.
Absolutely right.
Everybody always talks about the honeymoon stage.
Yeah.
And in the honeymoon stage, there's a lot of really cool and exciting
Or the
things
oh
happening.
yes phase.
The oh yes phase. It's the honeymoon
Trying
stage.
to be somewhat original.
Stay loyal to our brand, right?
That's right.
So, yeah, so there's, as you guys know, if you are married or soon to be married, if you're soon to be married, you're going to know this very soon. If you're already married, even if you've married just a short time, you know that this stage is really filled with attraction. It's filled, as you said, with, you say oneness and this
Yes.
whole idea of really being connected to one another.
They say it lasts 6 months to up to 2 years, apparently.
So about 6 months to
yeah.
2 years. Some people make the claim that our oh yes stage lasted 5 to 7
Isn't
years.
that us?
Absolutely. Some people will claim that. Most people are stretching it a little bit, but some people.
Well, it's a biological
might get it.
thing, so it's pretty hard to keep it going.
That's right. This stage especially, it's a really good point. This stage especially, it's really biological, it's really physiological. And so there's other stages phases that we have impact on. This phase we have impact on, but it's less.
It has a whole life of its
because
own.
there's stuff going on in your brain and in your
Yes.
blood and in your
you have
hormones.
You have a brain to show everybody, don't you?
Yeah, so that's a good segue, isn't it, honey? So we've got, you probably can't see this very well, but we just sort of threw up, this is your brain. Do you remember, okay, those of you who are older, do you remember the days way back when, this is during like the Reagan era of the United States political system, but Nancy Reagan got famous for this when she talked about your brain, and she was talking about drugs, and she said, she coined this phrase, don't do drugs, right? And there was this advertising campaign that came out. You don't even know where I'm going to go here, do you? There's an advertising campaign that came out. It was actually really, really effective, and it had a picture of a hand holding an egg, and it said, this is your brain. And then it showed a frying pan. It said, this is drugs. And then it showed the egg frying in the pan, and it says, this is your brain on drugs. Okay,
Wow.
so that's not what we're talking about
No.
tonight, but that is an interesting connection I'd like to make because, you know, this is when you've just gotten married, you're in your first few months of marriage, your first year, your second year of marriage, this is your brain. And this is marriage, and this is your brain on marriage. And your brain is really working differently usually when you get married.
Yes, but it's good for you. It's not bad for you.
It's unlike Nancy Reagan's advertising campaign, we highly recommend.
There's a lot of
getting married.
chemicals going on in that phase, that infatuation stage, and a lot of just amazing things going on in our bodies. You know, we have all the tingles, and a lot of people say that, you know, without having the conviction that you have to stay in your marriage, a lot of people end up leaving their marriages because they want that continual stage to never go away. And so they become serial daters, or, you know, they're always looking for that.
That's not good.
And you know, it actually is something to be aware of, even as a married, you know, couple.
Absolutely.
You can feel the tingles for someone else who's not your spouse, just based on spending a lot of time together. So you need to be careful of those those tingles in the workplace, and because it's completely chemicals. It's not based in reality.
We're using some high scientific words tonight, like tingles. You're feeling the tingles. And what the tingles are really, as we've already talked about, what your brain is producing, of course, is your brain, when in your first, usually, unless you have been together for a long time before you've gotten married, but if you are just sort of new-ish together and launched out on life together, your brain's in that first year, first few months, or maybe even up to 2 to 3 years, is producing serotonin like it rarely does, like it hasn't in a while. It's
I remember that stage.
remember that?
Yeah, weak in the knees.
Yeah, and I like that. And it's producing as well dopamine, and that dopamine
Ooh,
is
feels good.
That's a real feel good.
Yeah.
Oxytocin, a lot of oxytocin.
Yeah.
That's referred to as the love hormone. We're going to come back to that in a little bit as well. And I'm going to try and say this right, norepinephrine. And that's an interesting thing that's produced as well. It is really produced by our bodies to manage stress. And so what you'll find if you're an older married is you'll think back to that day when we were first married. Do you remember those? Oh, and I remember them fondly. And I remember that everything was tinted differently. Everything was sort of rose-colored, if you will. You know, where we get the phrase, rose-colored glasses. I saw the world differently. Why can't we get back to that? Even when we had problems, we didn't have problems, right? That's the norepinephrine kicking in, going, let me handle this for you, right? And you've got the dopamine, and you've got the oxytocin. We just couldn't get off each other. We couldn't stop touching each other. You're just leaning on each other, even on those hot, sweaty, humid summer afternoons. It's all right. We're together, right? Now you've been married for a while. And so what we're kind of alluding to is that after a while, the brain, when you've been together for a while, the brain stops producing those. And then you're kind of like, you know, get off me, you know, go sit over there.
So sad.
But we can, and we'll talk about this later, but we can keep producing those. We can be responsible for it, and that's one of the goals of tonight.
Yeah. So I think there's a really great scripture, because I think it's important to give permission to newlyweds to enjoy this phase. And so I love this scripture that we're going to look at right now in the Bible, in Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy
Kinda cool
chapter 24.
I mean, sometimes we don't think.
Don't know if you can see that.
We don't think in ancient times that married couples, we think they were all arranged together and never enjoyed a moment of their married life. But according to this scripture, and
we think this is a really cool thing, because this is a real old commandment, and we're not trying to drop some theology on you right now. Like everybody who gets married,
it'd be nice if we could take a year.
It really would be nice, wouldn't it? But we get it. We live in the world that we all live in. It's 2020. Is it 2020 still?
Yes,
it's
it
still
is,
2020, the year that just won't stop. 2020. We live in the real world like you guys do. And we're not saying that, okay, this is a command, everybody does need to do this, although it would be very cool. But we are saying, listen to the common sense that was in this command. You've got this young couple.
Want me to read it?
And go ahead.
It says, a newly married man must not be drafted into the army or be given any other official responsibilities. He must be free to spend 1 year at home.
I wish.
Kind of sounds like a pandemic, but anyway, bringing happiness to the wife he has married. That is so cool.
Stay home and bring happiness to the wife he has married. Now, the thinking behind this, of course, the reasoning behind this is a lot of times when these armies would go off to war, right? They just wouldn't. Again, try to think back then. When somebody would go off to war, it was kind of like, I'll see you in 5 years, if I see you at all. And so you would have these young first-year married people, and so to be sensitive, God says, look, let's spare the newlyweds, let's have him stay home. But we particularly wanted to focus in on this really great wording, right? Bringing happiness to the wife he has married.
Cool. Very cool.
And so even that's just to throw out throwing this out to the guys that are out there. Do you know that you have a responsibility and you have the ability to bring happiness to the wife you married? And some are like, well, I don't know how to. You have the ability to bring happiness to and God doesn't really go into how to do that. He's just like, you know what? I'm going to give you a year. Figure it out.
So we want to encourage all the young couples that if there's any watching this, and even just for us older ones, it's good to remember that it's such a special time in your life. So, we can pull out pictures from those times to really remember it. And if you're in this stage, though, don't let grumpy old people tell you, don't be so insular, you're being selfish, you shouldn't be spending, you should be more giving, more outward focused, whatever. It's natural at this time. You're working on your oneness, and the me is becoming we. It's a very special time to really focus on each other and making each other happy and celebrate it. And don't feel guilty about that.
One of the most interesting things that as we've been doing this for a long time, we see and even kind of study and learn more about these different phases that we go through, is that this phase is especially exciting. And I guess we're going to talk about this a little later, but it's really cool what the brain, the way God has created you and the way your brain is made. And he's having you produce all of these wonderful chemicals and things like that. And the reality is, because if you knew what was coming, you might not want to stay. Now, we're not trying to scare the young ones off, right? But if you knew what was coming, but this first stage is really so much bonding. It's really so much imprinting. It's really,
or maybe we could say, if you knew what was coming, your relationship's going to make it all that much easier. What you're going to go through in life, because I think that struggles are going to come whether you're married or not married.
It's a great point, but it is really good to be able to look back and have this baseline of, hey, do you remember when we had problems before, when we went going these stresses before, we made it through? Do you remember when we were first married, we just were obsessed with each other?
Yeah.
We can do that again.
Yeah.
Now, not everybody has that, but we'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So what we wanted to do is, we thought, as a case study almost, we thought maybe it would be good if we showed people some people who are in the oh yes stage, right? The phase, rather, the oh yes phase. Now, Lisa and I would like to tell you that we are pretty consistently in the oh yes phase. Wouldn't you want to tell? After 30 years? Not so much.
Where
Not
you're
so
going
much.
with this.
Okay, so
absolutely.
This is why me and the wife went out and found some young married couples, and we talked to them and we interviewed them, because we figured,
It's been a while since we were in that stage.
What do we know about dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin? We don't have a clue. So we got together recently with some newly married couples, and and they're on the screen here. You'll get introduced to them in just a second. But when we got to be able to be with them, when we were talking with them, and we talked about all kinds of things you're going to get to see in just a few minutes, or in just a minute actually. But I want you, as older marrieds, if you are, to listen. Try to listen beyond just the words. There's a lot of great stuff shared here. We have some laughs as newlyweds, but listen. There's also
some themes that
listen to some themes that come up, and see if you can't hear phase one loud and clear in the brains of the newlyweds. So watch this. We've got with us three really awesome couples who've been married for just a short period of time, and we're thankful to have them join us for our first session.
Hey, so my name is Tona.
And I'm Erica.
And we've been married for just about almost 3 years.
About 3 years now, but 2 of those years were in person, and the first year we actually were together long distance. But so 2 years in person, we've been married 3 years in total.
I'm Cameron.
I'm Brienne.
And we've been married for 11 months now.
11 months.
I'm Mateo, and this is my wife, Cassie. And we've been married for 8 months. Together, 8 months.
Our first question for you is,
We would like you to tell us in one sentence, when was the moment that you knew that you had fallen in love?
That's a really tough one. Brian and I have known each other for a long time. Like, we grew up together as kids. And I'd say I first fell in love with her in high school. And I really knew it when I saw her performing for one of our cabarets. And I just saw her passion in it with her friend Emma, and how much she loved it. I guess that was it. That was the moment, at least I remember, knowing, like, I love how passionate she is about what she does.
So for me, the moment I fell in love with Tona was when I saw how he loved people. I used to live in South Africa, and watching him just bring light into the room, people were drawn to him. That's when I knew.
The first time, we weren't even dating. I took her on a date, and we went to go play ping pong. And after the date, we went to go eat,
Sausages.
Sausages, right? Sausages. And
high class date.
but the whole day we were just connecting, and I just felt like, man, I could just hold this girl's hand right now, and she wouldn't. I don't know. I just felt like a huge connection with her, and I thought it was love. I don't know what she at that moment, but.
Tona, if our relationship were an object, it would be A, a chili pepper, hot, passionate, intense, and spontaneous. B, a quilt, warm, comforting, and cozy. C, a railroad, fast-moving trains, day by day, side by side.
You
Or-
can sleep at night.
Or a video game, push the button and a new battle starts.
It would be B, a quilt. We
Warm.
love comfort. Yeah, we just love being comfortable, warm and comfortable.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. Erica, 30 seconds for rebuttal. Would you agree?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, very good. Cam, do you want me to read it again?
No, I got it.
Oh, you got it. Go for it.
Oh, it's B. Yeah, a quilt.
Oh, we got quilts. What about Brianne? Do you agree?
I agree, yeah.
The warm fuzzies are out tonight. Eh? How about this? Let's see if we can't get the workout team to disagree. What do you guys think?
A. It depends. It depends.
Don't back away from it, bro. Don't back away from it. Own it.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay.
Most of the time B, but sometimes A.
And just to be clear, A is a red hot chili pepper. Hot, passionate, intense, and spontaneous. Woo! Oh, I'm glad they're on the call. They make it exciting. I like all these old-fashioned quilty people, right? So very good. Thank you, guys. All right, next question.
Okay, you ready? When I think about my spouse, I feel A, hot and tingly, B, loved and secure, C, safe, perhaps a little bored, or D, irritated and untrusting.
Who would say? Okay, sorry. No, everyone can feel free to say D if you feel it. Okay, for us, I'd say B.
Which is loved and secure.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Loved and secure. Tona,
B,
feeling it too. Okay.
absolutely.
All right, Brianne.
A.
A is
Oh,
hot and
tingly.
yes. Let me tell you something.
I like it.
Let's see if Cameron agrees.
I'm on a B.
Oh, you're not feeling hot and tingly?
I don't think, no.
Well, it's a good thing you feel loved and secure that you can say you don't feel hot and tingly. All right. Well, thanks, and
Awesome.
we'll send over some marriage repair kit after this for you. Let's go to Cassie.
I would say B by day, A by night.
Good one.
Wow.
That's good.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
So you guys are loving and secure in the daytime, and then when the sun goes down, it's all hot and tingly.
Yeah, basically.
Oh gosh, your parents are gonna see this.
What's one couple's thing that you guys just really love to do together?
Well, one of the things that we love doing, we haven't gotten to do it much recently, but we love long drives.
Mhm.
We love long drives. The longest one we've done is teen camp, which is like 14 hours or something, but we love doing it. But the thing that we probably do most consistently is just our, kind of phones down, sit down, have dinner, watch a show together, and just be in each other's presence without having a whole bunch of work or other things on our minds.
We love doing a lot of things together.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I'm not kidding.
So, yeah, I think we are definitely cuddlers. So I think one of our favorite thing is to cuddle before we fall asleep. Where every night we just go home, we lie down, have a little chat, and we cuddle, and then go to sleep. And I think that's one of our favorite parts of the day.
Wow. Isn't that nice?
That's nice.
You should cuddle me more often.
Yeah, right.
I think our favorite thing would be, I don't know, to lie in bed together and just cuddle as well. Honestly, we look forward to that at the end of the day, and as well, we just fall asleep like that.
Aw, that's so nice.
It is nice. It is nice. I don't know if I believe it. It's just cuddling. There's a lot of cuddling going on here.
What's your favorite part or aspect of being married?
I'm with my best friend all the time, and I love it. I could never have imagined that as a single person.
I think for me, there's so many perks to being married. Woo! But the one I'm going to share is that I really just love not having to say goodbye. I know, like, in dating, that was one of the suckiest parts. Was at the end of the night you have to say goodbye, and like you don't get to go home together, you don't get to like talk until there's boundaries, you have to follow, whatever the case may be in each person's relationship. But for me, yeah, just the fact that I get to be with him is amazing.
We call it lifetime sleepovers.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'm on Tona's page with this one. Getting to live and do life with my best friend. I get to come home and I get to see her. I get to just always be with her. I'm always so secure that I have her there. And it's my favorite part of being married, for sure.
Really just, I've admired him for so long. We grew up together. Just to know that I found the best of the best for me, that God gave me the best of the best, and I get to have him. Like, he chose to come home to me every night. It just, it's the best.
All right, Mateo, top that.
Okay. It's just the best. I always recommend it. I don't know. It's the best thing, being with your best friend for life, and honestly, really a blessing to be able to come home to someone who is beautiful and will cook for me sometimes, and I don't know. So it's amazing.
He brings so many new experiences in my life, and so much new knowledge that I would never know of, just because he's so passionate about so many different things. I think that he is so much better at other aspects in our lives, whether it's finances or it's just how to treat certain people. And I think I love that we can balance each other out to try to create a great life with each other.
We want to thank you guys very much for helping us,
Yes,
helping those who are older marrieds get a look back into what it's like to be newly married, so to speak. And you guys have done a really great job of helping us all see that and see this phase of our lives. Okay. 1, 2, 3, go. All right, very good. Very good. Well, there you go. Wasn't that great? Go ahead and grab your phone or your tablet and drop in the chat if you noticed anything, if you saw anything, any observations that you made. Let us know so we can have conversation with you about phase 1 and what you saw in our newlywed-ish couples there. But we do want to thank so much Tona and Erica. We want to thank Cameron and Brianne, excuse me, I said I wasn't going to say that. And so thankful for Mateo and Cassie.
Yes. And what did Mateo say? He recommends marriage? Is
He
that
recommends.
What he was saying?
Mateo recommends.
He recommends marriage.
It's true. He also recommends sausage on the first date.
Yeah.
Did you catch that? So that was
awesome.
That was very interesting. We learned so much. So some of the things that people people notice that are a reoccurring theme. I don't know if you're thinking about it yourself right now, but it's already been said that best friends seem to be a
Yes,
reoccurring
yes.
theme that's coming up.
I felt like the women all sort of expressed such gratitude for their spouses, so grateful
Right.
for their knowledge or, you know, for just everything. They were, you know, just really,
true.
you know, that God gave me the best of the best, and just beautiful,
Yeah.
just beautiful sentiments. I loved it.
That's right. Even when his first date is ping pong, with
Yeah.
they're very, very grateful for
true.
that. Going through life together with your best friend. There it is again.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is this kind of stuff. They all seem to have the butterflies when they speak about each other, right? Isn't that beautiful? So. And you know, kind of keep them coming, the snuggles and the cuddles and the warm
Lots of
fuzzies,
cuddling, yes,
right? So,
yeah.
so what you're seeing here,
So cool.
and it's very genuine. They weren't making it up. They weren't
No.
putting it on. They weren't putting on airs for you, and they certainly weren't being deceitful at all. This is the way they feel. This
Their
is
life.
the way they see life. And for those of us who've been married a little bit longer, I hope that you're not cynical that they see life that way. I hope that you're not that person who's
No.
saying, "Wow, I remember, but they were just." But that is just a very real phase
Yes.
of your life, and your brain is working there. There's a lot of bonding that's happening there, right? And so you see, they didn't come right out and say, "I feel dopamine, I feel oxytocin," but you hear a lot in their life together, and you see why God is so smart putting us together.
Well,
this
it's
way.
amazing. It's amazing. Even the things they're so grateful for don't even cost anything. Just being able to go to bed together and snuggle and come home to each other, and all the things that they were most excited about are free.
That's true.
Amazing.
That's true. I don't know who KD is, but whoever KD is, he's kind of having an attitude there, like, "What? You're newlyweds?" And I think that's probably
Oh, is
what
that in
KD
the
was
chat?
referring to. But then eventually it was like, "Okay, finally." So I think KD was with me when I was saying there's a lot of snuggling going on here, and I'm not too sure. Or cuddling.
Cuddling,
There was a lot of
yes.
cuddling, and I don't believe it entirely.
I think they were trying to keep it PG. That's what I think.
Probably
Yeah.
so. Appreciate them tapping down the oxytocin so they could just keep it PG for
But
us.
it is so good for us to see that freshness, that newness, the excitement. They're building, you know, the beginning of, this is the springtime of their life, and they're planting all these seeds of love and trust and, you know,
Oh, it's
commitment.
very poetic,
and
isn't it?
No, but it really is amazing, and so important, you know, for us to even remember that as older people who are married, my brain is not working tonight, but as older married couples,
Need some dopamine.
and actually speaking of that, you know, the experts say it doesn't matter how old you are, when you get married, you still have that phase to go through, and so that's really exciting. You know, people even on their second marriages still go through that very exciting stage, phase one. Oh yes.
Oh, yes. So can you see that this is certainly a really great thing? We've talked a lot about it now. We've kind of bigged it up. We've said it's very normal. We say this is what happens to you while you're there. But there is also some downsides to it. We won't go into that too much tonight, but there is some downsides to this stage as well. And then there's some challenges to all of us who are here, don't log off yet, who, I'm not in phase one. Why are you wasting my time? I could have been, you know, out cutting the lawn right now, and what about me? So some of the downsides, of course, or not of course, but some of the downsides of this is it's very difficult to have perspective at these moments.
Right.
Some of the downsides of this is our choices can be a little more impaired when we're first starting off in life. We don't make necessarily all the best choices. And it's not like you don't have control, of course, of your brain. But there is, even through art and literature, it's kind of come out over the years, famous writings about people who are in this stage. Well, have you ever heard of this? Romeo and Juliet. Now, in this hyper-romanticized culture that we live in, Romeo and Juliet's kind of known as a tragedy. It's known not as a tragedy, but it's known as like a very romantic, isn't that very noble? But as I just stumbled there and said, it's a tragedy. It's two people who are so desperately over-hormoning that their best vision of life is to not live. Like, you know, that sort of, so that is of course not true. It's written, but it speaks to this culture that in this phase that sometimes we can be impacted negatively, and that's not the best. So watch out for that if you're in stage 1. You know, do save your money, don't go crazy, and that kind of stuff.
But I think it is good for us to be reminded that it is a stage of innocence where you're just, just beginning to build your life together, and even negative emotions are not even that big of a deal in this stage. Some of the questions we asked the couples were about chores, who does most of the chores, and many of them, one does more chores than the other, but they don't care because they're just so happy to be together.
Doesn't have to be fair.
It's amazing how it works that way, but not as it moves on into the other phases. But speaking of negative emotions, though, it is really important that we don't try and just not have any negative emotions. Everything's got to be positive. Everything's got to be a honeymoon, because like I was saying, even the negative emotions can not be a big deal. You hurt each other's feelings, you have disappointments, things are not the way you hoped they'd be, but you get to learn about each other, and so don't try and just cancel out all the negative emotions. In the first 4 sessions that we did, we talked about negative emotions that you should cancel out. And
Yes.
those are really, really bad negative emotions, bad negative things that creep into a marriage that we don't want to have at all. The criticism, what were they? Criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things. And when we first got married, we had a conversation about things that we would never say, never ever. They're not allowed. And things like, I hate you, I want a divorce, these kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's very helpful to just kind of have you can have negative emotions and talk about your feelings, but try and, have some things that you're just, you do say, no, that's not happening.
Contain.
Yeah.
Right? You got to contain
But
yourself.
again, it's not always going to be ideal like that. And so we have some things that we wanted to share for, when we do stumble and don't do things perfectly, like these couples that we just got to see. Weren't they so perfect? So we have 3 suggestions on ways that you can really bounce back when you do not, when you don't do well in this phase, and how you can get out of it with, a positive impact on your marriage.
It's true. And the very, some good advice for all of us at really any time in our life is what's up on the screen behind us here. Don't take yourself so seriously. So there is this, and we're just going to be pivoting now just before we end to, and I'll come back to this in a second, but to be able to acknowledge that though you or we may not be in that phase that we just witnessed, that beautiful love-struck phase, where what did someone put in the chat recently, that beautiful phrase of
I know a lifetime of sleepovers. Is that what you're going to say?
a lifetime of sleepovers.
I
That was
love
good.
that.
And
That's
then always
good.
being beautiful, never saying goodbye to each other, never saying goodbye to my best friend. So that's a really, really beautiful stage.
Very special. Yeah.
And they haven't lived yet the life that a lot of you have lived. They haven't lived the life that they've also not had all the problems and the cliffs and the bumps and the hurts and the arguments and the letdowns, honestly, the wounds. And so that goes away, right? And that's okay. But that brain chemistry goes away, and you're left with the next phases of life, and we'll talk about those. But here's in our pivot, we really want to emphasize that no matter where you're at, no matter what phase you're at in your life, you can still have some of this. Although you'll never have it the way you probably once had it. And that's why Lisa referred at the beginning, the danger of getting addicted to that cocktail of brain chemicals is, as Lisa said, you can get people who become serial daters. You get people who become so obsessed with their own personal happiness and this good feeling.
Like a drug addict.
They'll
really.
leave the one they love and go for the tingles. That was our scientific word, right? Whether it's at work or whether it's on the bus or whether it's online. Why? Because I like the way this feels.
Yeah.
So, but for those of us who've been married a long time, you're not ever going to get it back if you had it the way it was, but you still can have this. You are kind of captain of your own destiny in the area of dopamine, oxytocin, and all those really cool things.
And I wanted to mention also that with the not taking yourself seriously. Humor is such a great antidote to everything bad in a marriage. But we knew a couple who on their honeymoon had, their honeymoon night was a disaster.
It was bad.
It was bad. Like
We
the
probably
first
shouldn't go
night,
into- yeah.
they were convinced, one of them, that they'd made a mistake. And it's, it's a story we won't go into. But we got to know them a couple of years into their marriage, and by that time, when they told us the story, they had us on the floor dying of laughter.
Yeah.
Because they had transformed, their marriage through the rocky. I mean, many people say the first year of their marriage is the worst year of their
people,
marriage. Some
yeah.
people do say that, so it's not all rose-colored glasses. But we learned from this
really good.
couple how amazing it is to use humor to heal. And they had some great stories from their first year of marriage that would just have people dying.
Yeah.
But
So
they
think
turned it
about your
around.
marriage, when whatever phase you might be in. If you're in phase 1, God bless you.
Yeah.
If you're not in phase 1, really think about your past a little bit. And as we had to counsel this couple, take into account some real challenging times. And let me tell you, it was not good. But as you move through it, if you can have the ability to not take yourself so seriously, so that wound, they decided we're going to turn this around and we're going to
help other
We're gonna
people. They
laugh a
helped
little
so many
bit at it.
people with their marriage.
And it's a little bit of self-deprecation. It's a little bit of just not taking yourself so serious. So that can be a really helpful option if to continue to get through and to keep intimacy in your life. The
And
next one
the
is-
get control of yourself. We kind of talked about not having things that you do not say, and it's just so hard, isn't it, to control your tongue and to even have a list of words that are not allowed to be spoken, and then you break that. One of them goes against the agreement, and it can be so hard. But to the best of your ability, control yourself. It's so important. I have much more trouble with this than Kevin does. But you really helped me with that in our early days of marriage. No, it's true. I was definitely allowed to be very out of control and, growing up, express myself in some unhealthy ways. And so coming into the marriage with you, you're a man of control. So you really have taught that to me, to our whole family. It's a hard lesson to learn how to control yourself, but it's worth it. It is worth it.
Yeah, and there is, as you think about this marriage that you have, it's what we've been making the appeal really week in and week out, is that this is the most precious possession that you
protect
have.
it.
And when we do not get control of ourselves, it's the very thing that we care about the most in our life that we put in jeopardy. And it's sad, it's terrifying, and it really shouldn't be. If we all could learn, ourselves included, if we all could learn better how to just kind of expect more out of yourself. As a spouse, expect more out of yourself as a person, expect more of yourself with the battle of emotions.
Yeah.
You will serve your marriage well.
Yes.
And then the final one has come up on the screen here. Get some help for yourself.
Yeah, I think especially when the first two are not going well, and maybe you just do need extra help. Professional counseling, we've talked about that in every session. Get help for yourself, and early in your married life. Don't wait till all the troubles and problems pile up on each other that are maybe due to some things that you really do need to go back into your life and revisit some things that need to be let go of, or need tools to get through. And so we really recommend professional counseling when it's needed.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
it's needed a lot for a lot of us. So.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. We've said this a lot too, even a few weeks back. You can go back and watch another one of our live streams where we kind of dropped a little bit of a toolbox, a little bit of a triage kit of some websites that you can go to that can help out. But it never ceases to amaze us as we counsel people over the years and the challenges they come up in their marriage. Often when you're at that crunchiest time and time of wound and time of hurt, it's usually when one of the couples says, well, we just can't afford it. And I just sort of stare at them gobsmacked.
You can't not afford it.
Exactly. What exactly are you, like if you really think about that in depth, it is, and hey, you may have said it, we may have said it, but it is really a foolish contention that we make. Because you are at this moment where there's probably nothing more important. There's no, it's certainly worth it, and most counselors would listen to you as well if you had financial challenges. But of all the sacrifices you need to make in life, this is one of the most important.
And the biggest mistake you can make is just to think that everyone starts off in the same place. It's absolutely not true. And how we started off in life is how we got training for marriage, because there's not a lot of there should be a license to a marriage. Well, there is a marriage license, but there should be like a, you
don't have to study
you should
for
have
it.
to go to school or something, before you get married,
That's true.
because life trains us. How we saw our parents growing up trained us, and that's or the people that were influential in our lives, and that's the training we got. So sometimes we really do need to unlearn some things.
Yep. So here we go. We've got to. That was sort of a drag. Let's get back to a little bit of happiness here again, but acknowledging that for those of you who are in phase one, as I already said, good for you. It's great to have you watching. You're probably logged off by now and started cuddling and and playing ping pong or whatever the first phasers do. But for the rest of us who are no longer in phase one, remember what we said already, and that is, although your brain may not be producing the abundant
Not
hormone,
quite the same cocktail, no.
not abundantly as it used to, you can still produce these. And Lisa and I really do believe in this. If you've ever been part of our marriage seminars in the past, we talk about this a lot. There are ways to get some dopamine producing in your brain. There's a way to get
Oxytocin.
Oxytocin especially, which is heralded as the love hormone. So let's give you a little bit of this. Most of this you know, and most of this you don't do.
And by the way, this is very good for you. I mean, what we're going to talk about right now is so good for your body, so good for your health. Lowers your blood pressure and.
Tell them, don't tell me. I believe you.
I know. So pay attention is what I'm saying.
So listen, you're going to all this hard work to look beautiful. You're going to all this hard work to either lose weight and stay in shape, and Lord knows how hard that is. And we're just telling you, look, here's an easy way.
Yeah, here's a workout for you.
To help your health. So you want to pay attention to this. But and before I just look at this up here, I really did want to say that there are a lot of reasons why we don't take advantage of easily changing our brain and easily changing some of that which is produced in our brain and our lymph nodes. There's reasons why we don't, and most of them are just unacceptable. So with what we're about to go through, it is so unbelievably simple how to imprint, how to bond with each other. So we're going to look at make eye contact with each other, hug each other, not just once a day, a lot throughout the day when you get time together. Okay, so we'll go into that in just a second. But already I can see I'm looking right through the lens and I'm coming right out the screen at you and I'm looking, and I know there's some of you're already dismissing it. It is a fool's errand to dismiss this.
Yeah,
it's
don't
so
do
easy.
that.
And the reason why we do it is unacceptable. We do it because we're stubborn.
That's a big one.
We do it because we've been hurt.
That's a big one too.
And actually what we're saying here is, even though you've been hurt, even though you're stubborn, apply some of these, and wouldn't it be interesting the way God has put your brain together to function, that you start to actually get over and move past the very things that you say, I won't hug him because I won't give her a kiss because the very thing that you're being stubborn about is keeping you down and killing you. So that was a depressing little lecture, wasn't it? How about we look at the love hormone? This is a way for you to produce some oxytocin. You'll never get it back the way it was the very first weeks of being married.
No.
But nobody wants you to have that much.
You won't have it as natural then, but you can work at it and have it.
You can have it. So let's go here. The first one is to make eye contact. Making eye contact. This drives everybody crazy. Nobody likes to do this. I don't really like to do it. But actually, it's science now, right? If you take the time and you stare into each other's eyes, what happens?
You imprint on each other.
You imprint on each other. Sounds sort of animalistic, doesn't it? Because it is.
It works.
It
It's
really
very
is.
vulnerable, incredibly vulnerable.
And that's the reason we don't like it. We get all kinds of weird feelings and our skin tries to crawl a bit and that kind of stuff. So it says that when you smile warmly at and look into each other's eyes, your brain literally starts producing oxytocin.
Isn't that amazing?
And then get this for all of us who've been hurt. When oxytocin starts being produced, it encourages trust. Should we have that dramatic pause? That's amazing. We totally discount this, or we just stubbornly go, I'm not looking into your eyes. Man, do it.
Do
so
it.
spend a little bit of time, and not just that glance like I want to do, glance away, but spend a little bit of time and let
Lots of times at seminars we've, in the room had couples stand up and stare at each other for a length of time. And
let your defense drop. Stare long enough that you feel your defense drop. Okay, number 2, go ahead and hug each other. While you hug each other or when you hug each other, oxytocin is produced. So this is the skin on skin, right? This is when literally you don't even know it, but just by touching each other, and the more skin that you get touching each other, the better. And believe it or not, right now, there is something going on in my brain. I have no idea, but I can tell you, starting to feel better. So when you hug, when you do skin on skin, that oxytocin is produced, and it makes you want to actually stay. It doesn't make you want to pull away. It makes you want to stay, and it makes you want to cuddle.
I do. I want to hug you.
There's our key word, cuddlers again. So that sounds like our first phasers in the ways that. Did you say you want to cuddle?
I do.
Let's wrap this up so we can do that. Number 3, you want to talk about holding hands?
Yeah. So when you touch and hold hands, this can decrease the stress hormone cortisol. Can they read that there? Lower blood pressure and release oxytocin as well. So that's really good.
You're saying, isn't that skin on skin? Well, yeah, it is. But there's a power in us holding hands
This
like
week we went for a walk and had a fight. Biggest one we've had in a while.
Yeah, it was a great one.
And
we had a good one.
And we resolved it. And we held hands at the end of the walk. It was very therapeutic.
It was good. Yes. Even if there was no oxytocin produced, it was still good to hold hands. Because it sends a lot more than just a chemical message, right? It sends a message of love and care and compassion. Number 3, kiss a lot. We should do that more. Kiss a lot. When you kiss a lot more, and I would suggest more than what we just did right there. But again, this is some skin on skin, but that touch, that kissing, it produces some really amazing stuff. Cortisol gets produced when you're kissing and smooching. Dopamine kicks in there too, so these are all the feel-goods. Desire kicks up. Maybe that's some of the reason why some of us don't kiss anymore. I don't got time to kiss because I know what happens when we start kissing and I got to get out the door and I got more important things to do. But do you really? Do you really? Anyways.
It's worth keeping your teeth brushed and making sure that you're ready for a good smooch.
And even if your teeth aren't brushed, right?
But, and I think that we don't kiss enough, older married couples, because you could just sort of think that
it's
isn't
silly,
necessary, right? and yet so you don't kiss because the hormones are there. You kiss to get the hormones there. It really works. It really does work.
So if you're sitting there right now feeling like I just don't feel like kissing, you so need to kiss because you're missing some serious hormones. Get some oxytocin, get the love hormone. You ain't going to regret it. Oh, and there's
music and
one
dance.
More. This was a challenging one for us. Why don't you go ahead and talk about all of our friends who listen to music and dance?
We're not big dancers unless we're at a wedding with our kids and they pull us on the dance floor. But
hypocrite alert. We've got to change this.
So we got to change that for sure.
But what happens?
Well, it can enhance your mood and may also release some oxytocin.
Yeah.
So I've had some good times dancing, but it's just not something we regularly do.
It's true. So for all the people we know who are great dancers, who take dancing seriously, we're looking at the Ivies, right?
No wonder you're so happy all the time.
They're dancing.
That's awesome.
They got the oxytocin kicking in, and they're very happy people. So
we have to, that needs to be on our bucket list or something.
Dance before we die?
Yes.
There's the Robin's sad bucket list. Hey, let's vision board that.
Yeah.
So
sounds good. Sounds good.
Before it's all over.
Yeah.
So listen, we talked about phase 1. Phase 1's a really fun phase to be in if you're in it. If you're not in it anymore, don't feel sorry for yourself. If you went through phase one and it wasn't even as fun as the phase one of the phase oneers that you've seen, don't despair. You can even turn that around. You may never get it back, but you can get that specialness.
Yeah.
And if you had really great time in phase one, but now you're way out of phase one and some of the other phases, just remember this. The stuff that we're talking about here and what is generated that makes phase one so exciting, you may never get it back the way it was, but you can have it. In fact, we're suggesting you need it. You need it for your marriage. You
Yeah.
need it for each other. So get serious about whatever it takes to start producing some of that good stuff, dopamine and especially
Yeah.
oxytocin. That means, in conclusion,
Yeah.
that you're going to have to spend a lot more time touching each other, being together, kissing, looking into each other's eyes, and go all the way back to what it was like in phase one.
Yeah, we should let them go so they can
Give it a try.
give it a try. Yeah.
So we'll see you next week. We're going to talk about phase two and phase two is but we'll get to that next week. This week, oh yes.
Oh, yes.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you.